So good morning. Thank you very much to Lee and his team for setting the day up and inviting me to provide you with a keynote address. Thank you to Nigel and to the panel this morning for the discussion. In particular, thanks to Andy. I've not seen Andy for a little while. He was a mentor and steward of mine at the BBC, so thank you. And also Nigel, one of my key clients at Network Rail prior to his departure into the big, brave world. So thank you. So I'm Mark Bradshaw. I'm a Director of Property and Workplace Consulting within Capita. It's a unique small team of consultants that provide end-to-end strategic solutions for our clients outside of the capability that CRE delivers within its own teams. So we focus on the development of business cases, strategy, workplace solutions, workplace strategy, and then we move into change management and benefits realisation. So that's a bit of background in terms of our role. I'm not going to stand here today and speak for half an hour, 40 minutes and sell the virtues of Capita and why you should engage with Capita or anybody for that matter. What I'm going to try and do is talk a little bit about the subject, which is about co-design and the benefit of understanding the organisations that we represent within our day-to-day jobs. Prior to joining Capita, as Nigel said, I worked for the BBC, spent 12 years there, progressed through a variety of roles, through portfolio management, project management, facilities management, but finally I moved into a role called workplace partnering. And this at the time was quite unique. There was a time when the BBC moved away from being BBC Property to being BBC Workplace, a completely different shift and perspective on the way in which services were delivered. So the workplace partner role was there to almost similar to the HR business partner, although I like to think we're slightly more effective. Apologies to any HR business partners in the room. But in that we were very visible. Despite the fact that my role was to look after portfolios across England, Wales and Northern Ireland, I actually was very visible to the heads of English regions, the head of Wales and the head of Northern Ireland. And we developed some really interesting and unique ways for the corporate real estate team to deliver solutions for the business. But more importantly, the business was able to articulate in a way which we could then understand. I acted as almost a translator of requirements from the property team and the occupier team, and it worked really well, at least I thought it did. So, as I say, it was about understanding and translating. What we're going to talk about today is co-design and CRE strategy. In the next half an hour, it's impossible for me to talk about all the different ways and activities and challenges that we might face working with our organisations to understand what they truly do and how they truly act and how they truly deliver great services and products or outcomes for the users and the organisation itself. But one thing that we do need to do is start to engage with them and start to look at the different techniques and tools that we can use. So in the next half an hour, hopefully I'm going to share with you some of my experiences, some of the things that worked for me, some of the moments of inspiration that I had early on in my career and why my approach to corporate real estate shifted significantly, and then share with you some of the tools and techniques that we adopt and hopefully leave you with the thought that actually we should be perhaps spending more of our time with the business. It was quite inspiring actually. I use the word inspiring a lot now because of the message on the board and the tweet in front of me. But it was quite inspiring for actually when we had the show of hands. I expected a number of you to say that you spend a lot of time with your business. Maybe that's a feature of the level of seniority that's in the room here today. In my experience, a number of individuals that might work for you might spend more time looking at the built environment and that there's a thin layer of strategic support that engages with the business. That's not a problem. That's absolutely fine. It's what the corporate real estate function is there to do. But it's pleasing for me to see that everybody here recognises, hopefully, the value, not only the fact we spend time engaging with the business, but the value that that brings to you in your service delivery. So to start, there's a description of what co-design is. It's referred to as participatory. I can't say the word, that's why I use co-design. It's an approach to design attempting to actively involve all stakeholders in the design process. It's there to ensure that the results, what we provide, what we deliver, meets their needs and is usable. It's not about what we want, it's about what the organisation's needs are and ensuring that the solution is usable for that environment. The term is used in a variety of fields, so it's used more commonly in perhaps health, where we're investing as medical science, looking at how we can provide services to the patients and to the service users. It's used in retail a lot, understanding customers and channel shift, understanding how people access services. But in real estate, it's used, but it's used kind of sometimes a little bit as an add-on or as a feature to developing solutions. It's all about understanding the occupants and the users' cultural, emotional, spiritual in some cases, but mainly their practical needs, how we can create environments that will inspire and drive them forward. So why am I here talking about co-design? Well, during my early years at the BBC, working in property, and maybe at BDP as well, my focus at the time as a young property person, let's say, after 4 years at college doing my BTEC and my ONT and my HNC, was all about buildings. It was all about project management. It was all about cost. It was all about program. It was all about specifications, tendering of services, and then a whole bunch of other KPIs that I was asked to deliver against. We refurbished space because it was part of our process. It was part of life cycle. It was the activity we did. We replaced worn-out plant, fixtures, fittings and furniture. Generally replaced them like for like in many cases without really considering what the impact of what we were doing was going to have on the business. We procured professional services. We tendered contracts. We assumed that replacing the old contract with a new contract would work. Sometimes we looked for best practice from across industry and applied that to our organisation. But very rarely, I thought, personally, that we actually went into the business to understand what our activities would have, what impact our activities would have on the organisation itself, and how our procurement activities would support or inhibit the operation. So I spent most of my time looking at buildings, reviewing spreadsheets, writing specifications, tendering services, managing contractors. Why? Well, because that was my job. That was at least what I thought my job was. So when did I learn the lesson that co-design was important? Well, in 1993, I joined the BBC, as I mentioned earlier. It was in Manchester, and it was a very exciting time for the BBC. There was lots of change and challenges taking place, not least with the rise of entertainment and features and this fantastic, young, inspirational part of the BBC that was making great programmes like Red Dwarf and things that we all think of as iconic productions. It was my second project at the BBC, so joined in 93, second project. I was refurbishing a 5,000 square feet office. It was for a production team for entertainment and features in a building which was built in the 1960s, maybe late 60s, early 70s was the last time it had any money spent on it. So as far as I was concerned, I was going to do something which everybody would think was fantastic, wasn't it? I was going to replace the carpets, curtains, put new walls up, paint walls, put new furniture in there, create a really nice environment, modern lighting, and some good connectivity around what was then the computer systems that we used. It was nothing complicated. After managing the works over a weekend, quite a young lad again, 20 years old, I walked into the room thinking, I'm very proud of what I've achieved. I'm sure the people in that room are going to be absolutely delighted with what I've delivered for them. Unfortunately, I was greeted by that. So Janet Street Porter, who was the head of entertainment and features, little did I know that Janet was in on the Monday that I strolled into the office, very pleased with myself. She wasn't best pleased. She explained to me quite loudly, as you might expect, very close to my face, with a few expletives along the way, how disappointed she was, let's say, in a way which doesn't offend anybody, that what I provided for her didn't work, that how, the furniture solution didn't work for their business. The environment wasn't what they expected. It wasn't what they wanted. And there was all of these different examples of why what I had produced over that weekend, which I thought was absolutely fantastic, met the brief, my manager had told me to deliver it, so it must have been right, was actually completely wrong. She was right, of course. So I went back to my manager and I explained to him that Janet was really unhappy and that I was a little bit upset and a bit shocked and I didn't really know why. So in the good old BBC leadership style at the time, I was told to go and sort it out and don't come back till you've sorted it out. So with my tail between my legs, I went back to the entertainment features, and after a long grovelling conversation with Janet and her production team, actually what transpired was, actually it wasn't that bad. It wasn't that wrong. There was a few tweaks. Within 48 hours, we'd corrected some of the issues that was causing them so much challenge and being very challenging against me and the solution that we provided. But what it made me learn was actually, it wasn't about the fact that it was wrong. It was about the fact that we hadn't engaged. We hadn't consulted with them and asked them their opinion. And I think it was at that moment that I learned that actually the business of corporate real estate is not about the things we do. It's why we do it. It's the way in which we can enable people to do things that they believe is provide them with environments that provide them with the right environment to deliver their services, and for them to be involved in the process so that there's co-design and there's buy-in and there's engagement throughout the way. So in 1993, I learned a valuable lesson. Janet left 4 months later. So hopefully that might reflect on some of your examples. If not, well, I'm going to show you some case studies now, just very briefly. These are not long, they're very quick, a couple of bits of text. These are projects that we are currently actively engaged in, and they're projects that we were actively engaged in on the basis of trying to help the client to solve the problem that they encountered. So for one client, I'm going to keep everyone confidential, a new civic building for a local authority. The design's been complete. The business case has been approved by the corporate real estate team. It's a capacity of 1,200 work settings. It's an iconic building, and it's going to create huge regeneration opportunities. Unfortunately, the business engagement was post the business case. The demand is now twice the capacity of the building. The location's under question and the overarching strategy is under threat. We're helping to recover that, but co-design, I think, might have helped to prevent that from occurring. A government department with corporate offices across multiple sites. I'm not going to explain any more than that because I'll give away the actual organisation. They spent 6 years developing a business case with a towel over their head within the property part of their organisation. It's been driven by assets, metrics, understanding KPIs and units that we use to measure performance of our estate. It makes a lot of sense. The focus is on regeneration and cost avoidance. Unfortunately, it's been completely rejected by the corporate board in 2012, the departments and the political groups. Client 3, government UK asset strategy. Again, I won't go into too much detail because I give away the client, but the future need was assessed by the corporate real estate function. The utilisation of those facilities and those assets was used as a key metric, and it was identified it was at 60% utilisation, therefore there was an opportunity for further efficiency. A consolidation strategy was built on that particular fact. It's not supported by the operational staff. It's a unique business. They're not a traditional office environment. They're not a traditional organisation. They're very, very unique. So the corporate real estate individuals who were leading on that strategy didn't take time to understand the business, and therefore the strategy's been rejected. And then finally, a corporate occupier. We work with a number of corporate occupiers, so this won't give away any thoughts. But program for new ways of working. Time and time again, the procurement of new ways of working is led by the corporate real estate team. Prescribed methodologies defined in ITT. Why do we prescribe defined methodologies? I ask myself sometimes. The challenge there was that there was no corporate mandate to deliver. It was driven out of corporate real estate. The framework was procured without the engagement, as you can see, and the programme was seen as a threat immediately to the organisation, the service departments. The change programme failed. So we created great environments, but did we really change anything? I suggest not. So what are the consequences for not engaging with the organisation, apart from the obvious programme, resource, cost factors? Well, key for me, and everybody in this room, I hope, is the fact that there's a loss of confidence and trust in the CRE function, that we do things sometimes without really understanding the impact it has on the business and the consequence of the service solution. So therefore, would an approach to co-design change the outcome of these situations? I would suggest yes. The question is does the occupier want to engage in co-design? Well, that's a fact. It's not my fact, and I can give you the source of the fact, but 90% of all employees believe that decision makers need to seek the opinions of others. Yet 40% of employees fail to engage and constantly fail to engage. So the workforce believe we should engage. Sometimes leaders within our business do not engage. I suggest that if we want to succeed in business, avoid some of the issues noted on the previous slides and provide the right solution for our organisations that we represent, we need to engage with them, the users and occupiers. It seems the door is open. So, cutting to the chase then, capturing the business DNA. I referred to in the packs you've all got about understanding the DNA of an organisation. My experience, approaches and examples are on the following sheets. It is impossible to suggest that this is the approach for every organisation. As it says, the DNA of an organisation should be unique, and the way in which we understand its services needs to be aligned to the way in which they can engage with you, they can provide information, and we can source that information. It would also take me a lot longer to share with you everything that I could possibly share with you. But the first step, I would suggest, is that we don't ask customers what they want. It's a trap that I see time and time again. We take a brief, we walk away with the understanding that we believe of what the customer is looking for. As Henry Ford said, if we'd have asked the customers, they'd have asked for faster horses. Now, faster horses might have been a good option, but it wasn't the right one. And that was the role of Henry Ford, to understand the objectives that the customers wanted to achieve and the outcomes that they wanted to harness, and to come up with options and to develop a solution which met with their expectations. So the important questions to explore when we're engaging with the business are, what do you do? Why do you do it? How do you do it? Where do you do it? Who with? And how might that be improved? How might it change in the future? Those are the core principles. If nothing else from today, those are the core principles that I believe are the things that, as corporate real estate executives, we should be asking time and time again daily. We need to then apply creative and innovative solutions through research, observation, engagement, analysis and challenge. We then can apply the right CRE solution that responds to the business needs. One thing's for certain though, determining a statement of needs or requirements is really hard work. Why? Well, business is pretty complex. We need to recognise that it's constantly evolving. What we did last year, last month, or even last week is probably not going to be relevant anymore. It's obsolete. The workplace and technology, as we heard this morning, is changing considerably in my working career, and it's changed in the last 5 years and will continue to evolve, not in a linear way, but in a fashion which is going to be 10 times the amount of change that we experienced last year, next year. Expectations of the workforce have shifted. I agree that the view on these generations is actually a lot to be desired, in that people are different, people are individuals, people want choice, people have habits, the culture of their environment that they've been brought up in suggests that they're going to want different things from the workplace. So we need to understand that, and it's going to constantly shift and evolve. Work processes are faster, they're integrated, much more well-connected. And the working day is a thing of the past. 9 to 5, the death of Dolly, I think BT coined it, is a thing of the past in my view. It's 24/7, it's about choice. We don't all have to work 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, but we should work when it's appropriate to deliver the outputs that we're there to deliver. Attending an office is now a decision. The point I was going to make earlier on, it was a really interesting debate. Actually, we go to where we need to do in order to do the work that we have to perform. So it has to be about choice, and it's about the individual choice to get the best result. Business now considers output and performance as a measure, not in all cases, but presenteeism, I think, is fading fast, and indeed is something which organisations don't encourage or promote. And then the explosion of co-working spaces, these third places to go to work, means that organisations, not just small, medium enterprises, but large organisations now, are considering these as real alternatives, giving them flexibility, choice and network. So change is happening. It's happening at a faster pace every day, and for us, in the corporate real estate world, it's a challenge. For some, as we talked about before, corporate real estate is no longer really about real estate. So the DNA of a business, by its very description, it's unique. As such, the solutions that it needs from the CRE community should also be unique. It should be tailored specifically to the business needs. So in our experience, my experience, the common features that we identify and try to understand as part of the process of understanding what the workplace needs to perform in order to support the organisation are identified on the screen. The list is not exhaustive. Each organisation will be different, and the elements of investment in time will be unique to those organisations. However, understanding leadership and the culture of leadership within a business is really important. Understanding the dynamics of the workforce, where are they? What is a mix of age groups and gender and activities that workforce is undertaking? What are the cultures and values of the organisation that we're referring to? And for one organisation that we're working with, I referred to earlier, the brand and identity is absolutely key. So how do we go about this process? Well, first of all, for me, it's about establishing clear governance and an agreement, almost a contract with the business. What is it the CRE function is going to provide? What is that contract that we can bring between the parties to ensure that the solution provides an outcome, which means that we realise the benefits, that there is ownership from the business of that solution moving forwards, that there's maintenance from the CRE function. And I don't mean maintenance in the physical sense. I mean maintenance in the sense that the organisation will continue to change and evolve. So how do we constantly monitor that? There are many models. This is one basic model just to show some indication. But what it shows is the key core responsibilities, in my view, of experience of CRE functions, and then where the business operation needs to take ownership, but also be heavily involved in the development of those solutions. Co-design occurs during the discovery and design process. We co-create in delivery and realisation. The focus today is around co-design. However, co-creation forms a parallel and sister activity across all activities. So the key to this is that the business is involved at each and every stage. This supports awareness, it gives confidence, it provides buy-in, it enables them to influence the outcome, and ultimately for them to take ownership. Again, in our experience, the first thing is to understand the as-is. Now, this is not about property dashboards. It's not about the information that we provide to our managers around how our estate is performing, what the unit cost is, what the area per square metre is for work settings or people. Those are metrics which we might capture for various reasons because A, we've been asked to, B, we think they're interesting, and it allows us to benchmark ourselves. But it's not going to enable us to really understand how effective our workplace is, what the utilisation of our environment is, what the data is regarding the workforce, how people travel to and what locations they access on a daily basis, and then some of the underlying principles around policies, standards and strategies that inform and guide the way the workforce operate. So for me, it's about capturing those, but it's not about capturing those in isolation, it's about capturing them with the business. We don't perform workplace utilisation studies using technology very much with our clients. We actually engage the organisation in capturing that data for us. By that way, we avoid the, well, you turned up last week and there was nobody here, or we're coming next week and everybody turns up in the office to demonstrate that it's really well used. The effectiveness is done through various surveys and tools, one of which we've used is the Leesman survey and maybe discuss later on, and how effectiveness can be taken forward. So it's about engaging with the business and involving them in the as-is. How does it perform at the moment? What are the opportunities? What are the issues? Capturing business requirements is a real challenge, because the as-is is quite straightforward. It's data, it's something we capture, it's something that can't be challenged. But understanding business requirements moving forwards is really complex. The scope and activities and the depth of products associated with doing this are really varied. Some of the examples are on the screen there, and I'll share these with you in some more detail later if somebody would like to talk it through. But core to this, and at the early stage of any program, is the development of an engagement strategy. How are we going to engage with the business? It's not communication, telling people things. It's about engaging and understanding who is impacted by the program and project and how we'll engage with them. We do that through a variety of tools. So there's visioning workshops, I'm sure you've all heard of these, one-to-one interviews, but across all tiers of management, giving everybody the chance to have their say and express their views and opinions and needs. We create a champion of business, a network of business champions across the organisation. We have lots of local focus groups within teams, which then build into organisation departmental focus groups. We undertake thorough detailed service design delivery reviews. We create accelerated solutions environments. For Birmingham City Council, we had a 4-day event for 800 people where it was all about creating accelerated solutions, allowing the organisation to design their future estate. It was remarkable and the outcome was fantastic. We undertake activity surveys. What is the activity of the organisation? How does people work? How does Fred on desk 4.02 do his work? Where does he go? Who does he see? What's the interaction? What is the technology that they use? And observation studies support that. And then culture and values assessment. The key for me about capturing business requirements is that everything that we identify has to be tracked back to what the business has told us. Not what we think they said, not our opinion of the organisation, but tracked back to the business. Ultimately, one of the key tools that you may have been familiar with and presented it in different ways, the resolution's a bit poor on the screen, I apologise, but it's about understanding the day in the life of the business. Not just a hypothetical scenario, which can be for any organisation and generic, but actually creating a day in the life of an organisation which represents the different types of workers, the different types of services that are provided, the interactions between those individuals, the technology that they use, the places that they go, the way in which they use the workplace and the environment around them. We create real timelines based on what the business is telling us and the observations. And then it allows us to present back to the business an understanding of how people work. Only then, I would suggest, can we start to shape how the future of the organisation could adapt and change, or the way in which real estate supports the organisation can adapt and change to enable them to become more efficient. So it's taking it from the as-is to the to-be. As I said at the very beginning of the discussion, communication and engagement. Engagement is clearly two-way, communication is a bit more telling, but having a strong strategy throughout any activity that we've performed, whether it be procurement, minor works, refurbishment, facilities management projects, is key. The plan for engagement and communication should span the end-to-end process and be really clear about how we're going to engage and what the purpose of that engagement is. It's an opportunity to share knowledge, experience and challenges. We understand our industry. Our customers understand their industry. We need to share and challenge each other to make sure the solutions are right, and only do that through engagement. We engage staff from across the business in the process, but we need to be clear on why we're engaging, but also what they're going to influence. The key to this is demonstrating that the customer said something to us, therefore we acted upon it. The worst thing we can do in our engagement approach is to engage and then not listen or act upon the messages that we receive. So, some final thoughts. Hopefully I'm on time. I think I am. And then we'll have some questions. So, unfortunately, there's no shortcut. We can't transfer knowledge and understand our organisation through some future contraption. It's not yet been invented. We don't get an understanding of an organisation going through an induction process on day one of joining an organisation. As consultants, we walk into organisations all the time, and the first thing we say is, we want to understand you, and we're going to spend time to do that. That comes as a bit of a shock sometimes, not only because we're talking about a process of maybe a number of weeks or months even to really understand an organisation and provide a benefit, but also that it comes sometimes at a cost. And unfortunately, we don't recognise the value of designing solutions sometimes and paying for that, understanding the statements of business needs. So effective solutions go well beyond providing safe and well-maintained facilities and projects that are delivered on time and within budget. It requires an understanding of how real estate portfolio can match and effectively serve the business. Not only do we need to think about the real estate, but what goes on in there. What is the workplace? What is the work? What is the place? Who are the people using those facilities? What technology is being provided and how will that change? And what are the systems, processes and activities that are performed within those places? We need to truly understand the organisational drivers, brand and identity, and also the vision, culture and workforce needs to create a statement of business needs and requirements, which means that our solution will provide and enable benefits to our users. We can't forget the external factors. We can't do much about them sometimes, but we can't forget them. And those are an important factor in considering the future. So developing a detailed understanding of the business environment, core business drivers, processes, value, brand and identity, and the changing needs of the organisation are core. So finally, I hope you agree with my view that the CRE community needs to embrace with co-design. Indeed, the show of hands earlier suggests that we do. Do we engage across all of our organisation within CRE with the occupiers? I'll leave that to you to determine. It is core to our business, and as we said earlier, the business of corporate real estate may not be about real estate in the future. It is about our organisations. So therefore, engagement with our organisations should feature in all key decisions and activities. I hope you agree. It is their workplace, after all. I'm going to pause there then, Nigel, and ask if there's any questions. I hope you found that useful. First of all, if you did, then I'm Mark Bradshaw and I'll be outside for at least another 8 or 9 hours for the day. If I'm not, I'll introduce you to Nigel.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mark. And great resilience there, and well done for keeping it going. Has Mark prompted some thoughts, some challenges and questions from the floor? We have just a minute or two to explore those if you have. One thing that occurred to me, Mark, was that you talked about the death of presenteeism.
Yes.
And how that's enabling us to introduce more flexible new ways of working. In my mind, that implies a great degree of trust in the culture of an organisation, and particularly amongst the middle management who have traditionally been accountable for their business unit's performance. What are you finding in terms of the levels of maturity and the readiness to move into an agile way of working?
That's my other presentation, Nigel, so I'll try and keep that one really short because that's at least 45 minutes. In a nutshell, there is a real struggle. There's a drive within organisations to achieve great things and produce brilliant environments that allow our organisation to choose how they want to work and where they want to work. And there's a divide, I think, between the leadership who recognise the value it can bring to their organisation, the brand and the success, and the workforce who also recognise that it's a choice for them and they can make decisions. The challenge sits with the skills and the abilities of some of those middle management, and I think it won't come as a surprise for me to echo what you've probably heard countless times, that that's the area where the business can succeed or fail. And yeah, I'll play back to you a scenario just very briefly. I was with a client yesterday who asked me about change management. It's one of the services we do and we spend a lot of time talking about it. And we were talking about the benefit to the organisation of spending money on managing change. And I shouldn't be taken aback because it's a common question, but I'm constantly surprised by the fact that change is seen as an additional aspect to us delivering a capability. Capabilities achieve nothing. The way in which we use those facilities and the capabilities that we provide enable change to occur and the benefits to be realised. And actually, one of the show of hands that I would have asked if I had 2 show of hands today would have been how much, in terms of budget, does the corporate real estate function spend on change management? And how much of the time is it spent as being an add-on to our delivery of our corporate real estate services and not core to what we do? And for me, that's a real challenge for me. If we recognise in this room that middle management find it really hard to manage change in terms of people not being in the office and not having presenteeism there, then why don't we do something about it? It's one of the things that means that we've succeeded in our solution to providing these workplaces of the future.
Okay, thank you, Mark. Let's just do that as a way of wrapping up the session, and before I give my thanks to Mark, is who in the room, as part of the corporate real estate function, has got any change management capability directly attached to them? Can I just show of hands? Okay, that's great to see, but it's not very many. And if we believe the assertion that you need change management to make these capabilities actually take effect, it might be an area you want to reflect on. Mark?
There's a final statement, which I didn't put in the pack, but because I've used it countless times and people will be a bit bored of it, I suspect, if they've ever seen me present before. But I use a phrase, and if somebody else has used it, then I'm not sure who coined it first. But as far as I'm concerned, as a real estate professional, workplace real estate, we need to move away from being what was at some point designed as being as guardians of the real estate. And as we've just recognised that real estate may no longer be a core function to our service, so we need to move into being enablers of change and integrating the aspects of the workplace into providing solutions. So moving away from it being real estate driven and thinking about enabling providing enabling facilities to allow the business to perform and succeed. So change should be core to what we do.
Okay. Can I just ask us to show our appreciation for Mark? Thank you very much.